We want to do something practical now. What we want to do is, let's pretend, what we're going to do is plug in. Let's say that x is known to be 3, and let's say that y is known to be 2. So what I want to do is evaluate the following terms, 4x squared. So remember, anytime you see a letter in algebra, it just means that it represents a number. That number is something that you don't necessarily know. Later on down the road, we might use an equation to solve for that number, right? Whatever x is, we're just trying to figure out what it is. In this case, we're actually given that x is equal to 3 and y is equal to 2. So if we have what we call an expression, this is just a word that means, something you write down that you need to evaluate. We call it an expression. What we need to do is take the value of 3 and stick it everywhere we see x. Everywhere we see x, and evaluate the results. So what we'll have is 4 times 3 squared. Right? That's what we're doing here. 3 goes in for x, so we're squaring that. So this is 4 times 3 times 3, because 3 squared is 3 times 3. So, starting from left to right, 4 times 3 is 12. So we have to continue. We put 12 here because that's equal to 12 times 3. 12 times 3 is 36. So the answer is 36. All right? Okay, now the next thing we need to do, just as another example, is say, what about 5y raised to the third power? How do we do that? Well, we know that y is equal to 2. So let's go ahead and put it in there. 5 times, remember this is an implied multiplication because they're sitting next to one another, 2 raised to the third power. So what we need to do is evaluate this and figure out what this is equal to. Now, in a minute, we're going to actually get to what we call order of operations. And I'm going to list and tell you exactly the order in which you do every calculation in algebra. But for now, I'm going to give you the biggest, most important rule that you can follow. And I'm going to drill this in because it's just so important. Always, 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 always do whatever is in the parentheses first. I'll say it again. Anytime you see anything to calculate, if you see parentheses, you must do what is inside the parentheses first. You always have to do what's inside the parentheses first. It always comes first. So that helps because here we're not sure, well, do we do the exponents or do we do the multiplication inside the parentheses? Well, the answer is you do inside the parentheses first. 5 times 2 is 10. The exponent is still along for the ride, but we've evaluated what's inside of here and made it 10. Now we have 10 cubed, which is 10 times 10 times 10. 10 times 10 times 10. And when you take 10 times 10, you'll get 100. Of course, you still got one more 10 to multiply by. And 100 times 10 is 1,000. And that is the answer. So if you take 5y, where y is equal to 2, and you raise the whole thing to the third power, you'll get 1,000. You must do what's inside the parentheses first. That's why we did this 10 first, and then we raised the result. So important. We're going to get to a little bit more of that here in a minute as well. All right, what if we have 2x raised to the y power? Now, this looks more complicated, right? But don't worry about it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You just put in what you know. 2 times, you have to multiply here because it's a implied multiplication because it's sitting there. X is 3 raised to the y power, which is 2. So we just plug the numbers in there. Okay? Now, the other thing is, and I'm going to get to a whole list of order of operations in a minute, exponents come right after the parentheses as far as what's most important to do. In this case, there's no parentheses anywhere, so we don't have to worry about parentheses. The next most important thing to do is the exponents. So that's very, very important because when you look at this, you might say, well, maybe I multiply 2 times 3 and I get 6, and then I take 6 and raise it to the power of 2. But that's not right. You have to do the exponent first, which is 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, right? So what we'll have is 2 times 3 times 3. That's what we're going to get. And then what we're going to have is 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 3, so we'll do it like this. 6 times 3 is 18. So we evaluate the exponent first, writing it like this. And then we do the multiplication left to right. 2 times 3 is 6, and then with 6 times 3 here is 18, and that is the answer. So always evaluate the exponent first. So as far as the hierarchy goes, and I'll write it down in a minute, parentheses comes first, exponents come next, and then everything else will fall out after that. We'll just see how it goes. All right, let me change colors real quick. What if we have 3y raised to the power of x. And notice that in this case, 3y is wrapped up in a parentheses. So 3 times y is 2, raised to the power of x, which is 3. That's how we're writing this. And now you need to think about, a lot of students will be like, well, do I do the exponent first or do I multiply first? Well, we already said that. We always do what's in the parentheses first, always. 3 times 2 is 6. Now that 6 was what was in here. It's all raised to the 3 power. Now we know exactly what to do because this is 6 times 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Still have to multiply by my final 6. 6 times 36 is 216. And this is the final answer, 216. So plug in the values, evaluate what's in the parentheses, and then do the exponent. And that's going to get you very far.